my name is Joan and welcome back to my channel. We are currently 3 weeks away from this year's election, and let me just say 2024 will go down as one of the most insane years of the 2020s, and we're not even halfway through the decade. It almost seems like this election could be made into a movie to see how ridiculous the American public, the candidates, and the media acts during this time. But what if I told you that movie has already been made? I'm talking about Head of State, the movie directed and starring Chris Rock as Mays Gilliam, a DC alderman who has been tasked to become the Democratic nominee of the United States when the Democratic nominee of his universe dies in a plane crash. Head of State not only satirized the US political landscape of the early 2000s, but it prefigured trends like outsider candidates, authenticity that's central in our future elections, and identity politics. Let's start with the movie's plot. The movie opens up with a musical narrator played by Nick Dodd that details Mays' journey throughout the whole movie. The opening credits also include all the politicians and powerful figures in politics that will not be in this movie. Alderman Mays Gilliam is introduced by answering calls in an ordinary office on a busy street in DC, answering all the constituents' questions that are simply wild. Trying to make a Chinese business Black-owned, using food stamps to buy tires, being asked to attend the Millions Baby Mamas March, all while putting his fiancée on hold. Mays is talking to a community member, Ezra, who discusses how the bus line could be shut down, and Mays tells him if that happens, he will personally drive him to work. Mays proves to be a staple in the community and a beacon for hope as they turn to him and not the mayor for help. For example, Miss Pearl's cat, Dion, gets stuck in the house that she sold, and he managed to get her cat, herself, and himself outside of the house before it blows up. On his way to the gas station, Jay-Z's Bonnie and Clyde '03 is playing on the radio. It always plays on the radio for the rest of the film. And while this is happening, a special bulletin comes across that details the Democratic nominees for president and vice president, Gaines and James, are dead after crashing their planes into each other. Mays goes into the gas station and says hello to another community member named Warren. He enters the station where the lotto man is playing his numbers, and the meat man shows up to sell his T-bone. He meets Lisa, the cashier, and he is immediately smitten with her. He gets home, and his fiancée Kim breaks off their engagement with him for, I would say, valid reasons. He's a man of potential, but no drive. I will come back to this. Doesn't want to play the politician game, and she doesn't feel value as a fiancé. And so because of that, she stops paying all the bills, and Mays' car gets repoed, and the next day, his office is evicted. While he's staring at his evicted office, his bike gets destroyed by the bus. Meanwhile, in the dungeons of the Democratic Party, they are trying to figure out the election with their nominees dead. Bill Arnott, a senator in the face of the party, is not running, and he knows that the Democrats are going to lose, so they just need a dog and pony show with a candidate who doesn't know any the wiser. After the news picks up the story of Mays saving Miss Pearl, Bill picks Mays as the new nominee, as the numbers show that in the next 20 years, the majority will be the minority, i.e. non-white people, and to jump against the grain by putting a black man as their nominee now to make the party look good, and for the 2008 election, white people will still vote for the Democrats because their nominee won't be non-black, meaning Bill will be the frontrunner. Mays talks to a colleague, Bernard Cooper, played by Keith David, for assistance and gets told that he is essentially getting fired because he doesn't want to play the game, he cares too much about fixing shit for his community and not to appease town hall, which is very ironic because that's literally how it's like now. After seeing him with another man, Mays has officially hit rock bottom. Martin and Deborah invites Mays to their office and formally ask him to run for president since he lost their job. And of course, they know that he lost his job because they're the government, they know everything. He is skeptical at first, but he does later accept. Mays' campaign headquarters is literally Mayo Central, and this is where he's introduced to the rest of his core team. Mr. Earl, head of security, Mays Jr., his body double, and Nikki, the executive director of internal liaisons. Now, I think this is absolutely hilarious because you can see that Nikki is being played by Stephanie March, aka Alex Cabot from SVU. And it cracks me up because her role is essentially the on-staff escort so that scandals are avoided. It's low-key giving Laura Loomer, allegedly. Mays heads to his first event, which is his coming out party to the nomination. Mays is having trouble adjusting to all the eyes and the mouths on him, but he's able to spot Lisa, the woman from the gas station, who's working the event, and they start talking. They start doing the electric slide, which attracts the guests, mostly white people, and it's to Hot in Here by Nelly. The crowd is definitely feeling the vibes, and it turns out to work in Mays' favor. Mays starts campaigning and he does his usual routine. The city is the backbone to his country, important to the election, blah, blah, blah. After a conversation with his brother Mitch that calls him out on essentially sitting the backseat of his own campaign, Mays explodes the stage with his "that ain't right" speech and talks about issues like low wages, lack of support in education, and the big corporations coming after the everyday man. This proves to be a turning point for Mays as he takes control of his campaign. He adds black people to his staff. He redecorates his headquarters to be hella black. He hires a new security head, Muhammad, and he starts dressing like he wants. He loves double denim. And starts attending the events that he wants. He talks about childcare, LGBT rights, and even tries to unionize pimps and prostitutes. This is where we're introduced to Brian Lewis, Republican nominee for president. He's been VP for 8 years, he's a war hero, and he's Sharon Stone's cousin. He only is now realizing that Mays is running against him and that Gaines died, which should have been already on his radar, but since he thinks he got it in the bag, why even participate 7 weeks out? Sounds like anyone? The Lewis campaign pushes a negative ad towards Mays, and in the ad, the White House blows up, and it's basically saying that if Mays is elected, this is what's going to happen, and there's no other reason. They also release another ad that says that Mays is for cancer. The slogan of the campaign is, "It's your last chance," which I just think is so funny. In retaliation, Mays releases ads that has the KKK and a dubbed Osama bin Laden showing their support for Lewis. On top of that, Sharon Stone has outwardly supported Mays for president and not her cousin. Bill comes and tries to convince Deborah to sabotage Mays so that he would lose because his numbers are high, that he's the frontrunner for 2008 and not Bill. However, Deborah sides with Mays, surprising herself. Mays goes to Baltimore to have an event with the Urban League, and while here, Nikki makes a move on him, but he rejects her. He leaves the event and he finds Lisa at the end of her shift, and they stay out all night getting to know each other and having a great time. They start to have a very cute moment when it's interrupted by Secret Service. A campaign event has happened where a junior high student has brought guns and explosives to their school in Florida, and so Lewis and Mays show up to give their takes, like a campaign moment. Mays gets there first and he's talking to the press, but then Lewis shows up in the helicopter and completely steals his moment. Mays suggests that him and Lewis should debate, but Lewis outright dismisses him. Behind the scenes, Bill gets footage of Mays saying an off-the-cuff remark, and I don't think it was that bad, but obviously for the campaign's sake, it was really bad. And Mays' image starts to go down. They're trying to figure out what to do, and Mays suggests that he gets out the statement. Deborah crashes out so badly because Mays isn't getting it, and she admits to him that he was selected to lose. Mays fires Deborah and Martin, pushing Mays' campaign further down the drain. After an encouraging call with Lisa, Mays decides to hire Martin back and select his brother Mitch to be his running mate. Mitch hits the circuits, and he does his best with no political experience, even though it's better than Trump if you ask me. With enough chastising from Mitch and Mays, Brian Lewis does agree to one debate the night before the election. Mays calls Deborah and apologizes, and she makes her return to the campaign in record time. This campaign was watched very carefully, and during the debate, Mays and Lewis goes back and forth on violent media on children, gun control, and debating if the debate is an argument in a very childish manner. Brian truly gives the stock answer of what a Republican would say about why they should be president, and in the moment, it's quite interesting to hear the speech in which Lewis has more political experience than Mays, but calls him an amateur anyway, and it would be their last chance to save America from a black president. In Mays' final statement, he talks about how an amateur can still harness the power to learn and can still be better than what was before. Lewis is out of touch with what it means to actually be an American, and Mays expresses that he's a true American that's been broke, high, and has bad credit. He calls Lewis a crock of shit and blesses not only America, but other countries that should be mentioned as well, like Jamaica, Haiti, and the whole continent of Africa, because they also deserve major blessings on what they have provided to the world. On election day, the 9th Ward bus line does get cut, and Mays decides to go out and drive the community to work because he promised Ezra, the old man, from the beginning. Mays' number starts to creep up, and they might overtake Lewis, but Bill decides to approach Lewis to do a backroom deal to get white people on his side because Mays might actually win and, you know, racism. In the end, it wasn't enough because Mays did win the presidency for 2004, and he also got added to Mount Rushmore at the end. Mays Gilliam is the main character that is very much a populist fantasy candidate of an everyday person working against the system. He takes community members' calls directly. He does not have a set uniform. Like I said, my man loves double denim, and he truly thinks about the little people. When Bill approaches Mays with the nomination, they have a little moment. They look in front of the Lincoln Memorial, and Bill basically says that the Lincoln Memorial represents the freedom of the country, while Mays is thinking about the worker that has to clean Lincoln's balls for minimum wage. Mays is just that character that just thinks about every single person and the way that they contribute to society. I mean, part of the reason why he got fired from his job is because he didn't want to play the political game. A black man skipping the line to get his community the resources that they need. Let's just say the establishment did not like that. It also didn't help that Kim, his ex-fiance, literally stopped paying his bills. And also she broke up with him as well because she saw herself as a senator's wife, as a congressperson's wife. And I just think it's interesting because as an outsider candidate, Mays is seen as like an amateur or maybe the not the right type of candidate, even though he does have the experience. But I think just not conforming to the political game just did not help him. Mays always told you what he thought and you better like it. The way that he was connected with the voters because he was truly trying to appeal to every single voter base. Low wage, single parents, small business owners, poor. Since he already had the reputation of being the man of the people, getting the masses to appeal to him wasn't going to be that hard. Since this was 2004, Mays had to work with the traditional media like the networks or newspapers. But in 2024 today, the politicians are utilizing a whole bunch of different tools at their hands. They're using live streams, they're doing TikToks, they're just being on social media in general. Identity politics becomes a main point in this film because Mays is the first Black Democratic nominee to ever run for president in this universe. This reflects the experience of Barack Obama when he was running in 2008. Although he wasn't the first Black person to ever run for president, that title goes to Shirley Chisholm. She ran in 1972. Unfortunately, she did not get the nominee, but she was the first Black person to ever be elected in Congress in 1960. Even though I was a child, I can definitely understand the importance of Barack Obama becoming the first Black president and what that meant to Black people as a whole. Unfortunately for Barack and Mays, to be the only representative of your race for a big event in our entire history, that can add a lot of pressure. Mays felt that pressure immediately as he started to believe in himself more and more as the election went on. The film makes this big aspect of trying to lean more into Mays' Blackness. This includes changing the headquarters to a Black-only staff, creating promo like a 2000 music video, talking to voters with slang words or lack of fully curated statements, always getting approached to listen to someone's mixtape, being greeted by an HBCU marching band on the campaign, even wearing a FUBU suit. Mays was perceived as the voters, the media, and the establishment as the one person that can open the doors for minorities that wants to pursue politics. From my lived experience through Obama's campaign, you can say Kamala's campaign is kind of going through the same thing. Identity politics have been pushed to the front because she is the first Black woman to ever run for president. But unfortunately, comes with that is rampant misogynoir. There are plenty of statements of Obama and Harris's race being questioned by, ironically, the same man, Trump. And Obama did actually put out his birth certificate to show proof that he is a Black man, while Kamala simply just ignored this man and just pushed towards other policies that she's running on. The film satirizes the backroom deals and superficial nature of the political system that we're in, and that basically shows through the people's distrust in the institutions and career politicians today. The way that Mays' whole campaign has been spearheaded by Bill comes at no surprise because we definitely see politicians in the States today essentially being pushed towards another position in government later down the line. All the constant shady maneuvers that Mays and Lewis throws each other is just very, very petty. It's very reminiscent of the ads that are going on right now, if you're in Ohio, of Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown going after each other. Sherrod Brown supporting trans rights, Bernie Moreno being anti-abortion. It's relentless, day in, day out. Career politicians have proven to be the most annoying because they actually fear candidates that the people support and actually back them as everyday people. And so what do? They spend tons and tons of money to try and take that seat away. For example, AIPAC proves to support candidates on both sides of the aisle because they want to silence other candidates who are pro-Palestine. Publicity stunts are becoming more and more frequent when it comes to the politicians and their campaign runs. For example, when Mays and Lewis are essentially trying to fight for the media's attention, Lewis shows up in a big helicopter when it comes to the middle school incident. Mays and Mitch goes on a whole, essentially a harassment campaign on trying to get Lewis to debate them. They were following him, they were taking TV ad spots. It just gets more ridiculous as time went on. Just like in real life, style and sound bites have been prioritized over substance, an idea that feels more relevant in the age of viral moments and media-driven narratives. The media's role in this film is very similar to the way that the media was playing in the early 2000s. Mays only gets noticed because he's on the news after saving Miss Pearl. Once he accepts the nomination, magazines like Newsweek, Time, and Ebony capture this moment in history with taglines like, "Are we ready?" to "It's about time." All the ads on TV do affect Mays and Lewis's numbers collectively during the whole election. After Mays' off-the-cuff remark about the child who brought the guns and explosives to school, his image does take a dip in the polls as well. In addition, there was a news story of Mays knowing Warren, who was a local drug lord in the area. Of course, he's just a guy that he would say hi to in the neighborhood, but he didn't drug lord know him. And that's essentially also takes his image even further. The same magazines earlier that were praising him were publishing hit pieces. With the 24/7 news cycle, voters can only use the perception when it comes to selecting the candidate that they want for president. Compared to the social media of today, Kamala Harris essentially got 4 months to prove that she is a candidate for president, and she wasn't going to do the traditional route with traditional media. She went on podcasts like Call Her Daddy, and her campaign on TikTok has been kind of blowing up, cashing in on the viral trends to make her seem relatable. Traditional media is now seen as untrustworthy as certain investors perpetuate narratives on their networks, and people would rather rely on social media and trust what they can see to make their decisions. However, it is up to the voter to use their critical thinking and their comprehension skills to see which candidate will be the best for the collective. Sometimes that can be hard when traditional and modern media tend to confuse people and push them away from investigating any further. When this movie premiered, it bombed terribly at the box office, and it landed a 30% with Rotten Tomatoes. Famous film critic Robert Ebert actually gave this film a 3 out of 4 stars and had the following to say: "An imperfect movie, but not a boring one and not lacking in intelligence." I think this is the perfect way to cap the film off because this is a genuinely comedic reflection on the times, but also a flash forward to what our political landscape is going to look like now. I think this film holds up, and I thought for a long time this film reminded me of the 2012 election between Obama and Romney, because I swear sometimes it seemed like they were just going at each other's throats for like petty reasons. But this year has firmly cemented that no, this was definitely Kamala and Trump. Like, definitely reminded me of this year's election as well. I just want to say that this is just a firm reminder that there's always stuff happening behind the scenes, and no matter who wins next month, I think it's just important to actually get in your community. I've been looking at volunteering options lately, and I've been wanting to do something because, you know, the government has kind of low-key proven that they're not going to save us. Like, they are not. They don't really care. And I just want to implore people to look for volunteer opportunities in their towns, to get to know their neighborhoods better, to get to know their neighbors better. Really push yourself when it comes to interacting with people, because community is going to be the thing that holds us together. Voting is important and people should exercise that right, but we need to extend to other opportunities beyond that. That is truly the only way we're going to make any change in this country. Thank you so much for watching my video. Head of State has been one of my favorite movies since I was 12, and to look at it at a film studies lens was so much fun. I mean, the amount of notes that I had so much notes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.